Following the shellacking of the Los Angeles Rams, the Saints front office now has the difficult task, for the first time in a long time, of narrowing the 90-man roster down to 53, while hoping the ones they wish to stash away on the practice squad don't get picked up by anyone else. How much impact will this past week's late additions have to the roster? This is the third version of this roster projection series, and you can read version 1 and version 2 here. Unlike previous editions, there will be a practice squad projection at the bottom of this article. Remember, these projections aren't meant to be completely accurate, but they are intended to be viewed as a stock market. What players are rising and falling from where we sit? Quarterbacks: 3, starter, Drew Brees; backup, Teddy Bridgewater; punt blocker who can throw, Taysom Hill. Trading for Bridgewater and picking him up from the New York Jets for a third-round pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, while also receiving a sixth-rounder, shows that the Saints weren't completely confident in what they had behind Drew. Teddy becomes the hero New Orleans deserves, but not the one it needs right now. How long will he have to wait behind Brees before getting his shot? Hill still seems to be a player the team believes in, and not just as a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none athlete. Sean Payton alluded to the presence and spirit of Hill that makes his respond and believe in him. Tom Savage will likely be cut, or possibly traded, and they'll try to stash JT Barrett on the practice squad. Running backs: 5, starters, Alvin Kamara. This last cut is a difficult one, and New Orleans could opt to only carry 4 running backs to make room for other players on the roster. Wide receivers: 5, starters, Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn Jr., Cameron Meredith; backups, Tre'Quan Smith, Brandon Tate. For most, there is little doubt that the first 4 names mentioned in this group will make the roster. Tre'Quan has been arguably a top 5 player in camp, and Meredith finally showed against the Rams what the Saints paid for when they chose to pick him up during the offseason. An interesting point was made by John Stinchcomb during the Saints and Rams broadcast. Brandon Tate was not on the field during return situations, and Tommy Lee Lewis was. This showed to Stinchcomb that Tate had already earned this role. While Lewis had a very good game in his own right, was it enough to make the roster? Does he provide more value than a player such as Austin Carr, who has seen his snaps and production from the slot increase in games 3 and 4 of the preseason? I see him as on his way out. Tight end: 3, starter, Benjamin Watson; backups, Josh Hill, Dan Arnold. There just aren't enough spots to carry as many tight ends as the Saints have in the past. Is Dion Yelder worth more than an Arthur Mullet? What about Devaroe Lawrence? It's best to try and stash one of the younger tight ends on the practice squad and choose players who have performed well at deep positions. Pastor Watson has looked good in limited action during training camp, and Arnold provides that athletic seam runner Payton has enjoyed using in the past. For those 12 personnel packages where a blocking tight end is needed, Hill has been more than serviceable when tasked. Offensive line: 9, starters, Teron Armstead, Andrus Peat, Max Unger, Larry Warford, Ryan Ramczyk; backups, Josh Larabius, Will Clapp, Rick Leonard. Cameron Tom Bushrod was brought in to be the reliable veteran backup, and to be honest, the Saints haven't put him in the greatest position to have success. His versatility to work inside out is a plus, but asking him to play left tackle against Melvin Ingram at this point in his career, or even in his prime, is a tall order. That is what makes evaluating him so difficult. Would he actually play left tackle during the season, or would he stick to guard and they slide out Peat or Ramczyk? Even if Bushrod was to be mainly an interior player, younger guys like Tom, Clapp and Larabius have all looked solid at guard and center while being younger than the aforementioned Bushrod. Don't be surprised if Bushrod ends up on the Saints' final 53-man roster, but he isn't in this projection. Defensive line: 9, starters, Cameron Jordan, Sheldon Rankins, Tyler Davison, Alex Okafor; backups, Marcus Davenport, Trey Hendrickson, David Onyemata, Devaroe Lawrence, Taylor Stallworth. Do the Saints keep an extra run defender in Stallworth, or a versatile player like Mitchell Lahuin? This position has some of the hardest decisions for the New Orleans front office to make. If they keep the depth here along the offensive and defensive lines, then they are likely losing players in the secondary. Like with the receivers, most of the players in this projection are a lock. The first 7 names are all arguably locked in and not going anywhere, with Davison being the only one some have considered having cut potential. Linebackers: 6 starters, Demario Davis, Monte Te'o, A.J. Klein. Backups: Alex Anzalone, Nate Stuper, Craig Robertson. Our writer Elias J. Williams proposed last week that Hau'oli Kikaha could be traded to a team needing a pass rusher. If that doesn't happen, I expect him to be cut to make room for players who contribute more on special teams. While some of Stuper's end of preseason heroics were provided as generous gifts from the Rams' offensive line choosing to leave him unblocked, he has still shown the propensity to be valuable on both special teams and as a reserve linebacker. Could Klein be in consideration to be cut? Given his performance throughout the preseason, it's a possibility. In the end, it's more likely the Saints continue the Klein experiment in hopes that his play becomes more consistent and more positive, as the linebackers under Nolan gain more time together as a unit. Cornerbacks: 6 starters, Marshawn Lattimore, Ken Crawley, Patrick Robinson. Backups: Arthur Mullett, Justin Hardy, Natural Jemerson has P.J. Williams shown enough to make the roster? Williams did not participate in preseason games 2 or 3 and saw limited action, 15 snaps, against the Rams. With both Hardy and Mullett getting extending looks and both contributing on special teams, it makes it hard to find a spot for Williams on the roster. Rookie cornerback Natural Jemerson has been a nice surprise. His transition from safety to corner hasn't been the potential career speed bump that it has been for players making the same transition in the past. With so many young players providing in multiple phases of the game, it makes it hard to let them walk. Safeties: 4 starters, Marcus Williams, Kurt Coleman. Backups: Von Bell, Chris Fangio. While Cameron Moore did see a significant increase in snaps to end the preseason, 18 on special teams, 54 on defense, it's unlikely that this is enough to earn him a roster spot. Coleman, Williams and Bell are all etched in a stone copy of the 2018-2019 Saints roster, while Chris Fangio has consistently contributed on both special teams and defense. New Orleans will likely try to stash more on the practice squad. Special teams: 3 punter, Thomas Morstead. Kicker: Will Lutz. Long snapper, Zach Wood. Practice squad: 10-1. Alex Jenkins. Special exemption, Mitchell Lowen, Keith Kirkwood, Ian Yeldridge, T. Barrett, Cameron Moore, Carlton Jumper, Quad and Muhammad Austin, Kurtree Edmund, Garrett Griffin.